Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends. Good evening and welcome to Kardec Radio. I am Correa and we are here every Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to study the divine laws that govern the universe together. And one may wonder, why study the divine laws? Because, dear friends, they are the constitution of our souls. And the more we know about how life works on a multidimensional and, most importantly, eternal level, the more we align ourselves with the abundance of God's love. And as we make this effort to ascend spiritually, we ourselves cultivate more serenity, more inner joy, more everlasting well-being. And who amongst us wouldn't like to experience more everlasting joy and well-being and sense of serenity as well as communion with God? All of us, right, dear friends? Because God for certain already communes with us. We are the ones who are in training by the mercy of God to learn how to commune with God and all of its creation. What a beautiful divine proposal. This is the reason why Kardec Radio reserves this half hour for this purpose, so we can align ourselves all the more with the divine consciously. Beautiful proposal, dear friends. And tonight we are going to continue focusing on the notion of divine justice. We are going to be blessed with more tools to understand how God's love operates directly in our lives. Because if we could dare to summarize God's laws in one word, we would say love. And if we are wondering why love, Carol, because this is how Master Jesus, our guide and model, summarized it himself. So we pray and hope that all of us connected to these platforms, whether live or on demand, can be more permeable to God's love as we spend this half hour recognizing God's love within ourselves and in all of our surroundings. So welcome, beloved friends. May you feel the embrace of God, Master Jesus, and the mentors that prepared this study for us. And let us be mindful that they are visiting us right now and counting on our thoughts, feelings, and vibrations so that we can become active co-creators of the good on behalf of humanity and those who are suffering much more than we are, that are in greater need than ourselves. So thank you for joining the team of the good on earth, dear friends. God is most definitely counting on all of us, right, dear Veronica? Hello, it's so wonderful to be here with you, and thank you for joining us on Kardec Radio, dear friends. Let us begin. The focus of our study tonight is going to be on question 876. Should you have the Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec and wish to follow along with us, the reference is question 876. Kardec in this question asks, Aside from the rights established by human law, what is the basis of justice according to natural law? Natural law, we know, is the same as divine law because God is the one that created nature, including ourselves. All living beings are creations of God. The answer from the illuminated minds is clear, succinct, and very revealing. They say to us, dear friends, Christ has told you, do unto others as you would have others do to you. God has placed in humankind's heart the rule of all legitimate justice through the desire that each and every person should see their rights respected. When uncertain about what they should do in regard to their neighbor in any given circumstance, they ought to ask themselves what they would want their neighbor to do to them in a similar situation. God could not give them a safer guide than their own conscience. And Kardec further elaborates by saying that we do not desire harm to take place unto ourselves. So it is helpful to have this standard of our personal wishes or desire as a standing point or starting point to guide how we will act with regards to others. So, beloved friends, did we know that in accordance to immortal justice, justice is referred to as respecting the rights of others. And in the eyes of God, to respect the rights of others involves doing unto others what we would like them to have done to us. Seems simple, right, dear friends? Yes, and if we think about this, all of us would like to be loved and accepted exactly as we are. Who amongst us wouldn't like to be understood, to be appreciated, to be treated with compassion, to be given a break when we are undergoing challenges, to be comforted when we are faced with difficulties? All of us invariably would love to have ourselves be understood and accepted exactly as we are. So if we are nodding and going, yes, this is it, we got it, this is exactly what is in all of our wish lists, the question then is, it's wonderful that we may share this deep desire to be loved and accepted, dear friends. Now that we may have recognized this common ground upon which the majority of us stand, the question is, are we treating others the same way? Meaning, are we offering to others the same level of acceptance, compassion, and understanding that we wish for ourselves? Interesting question. Let us examine this question, dear friends, from a multidimensional perspective. And we may wonder, why go through multidimensional perspectives? Because as spiritists, dear friends, we know that we are more than the physical body. We are more than this current personality. I myself am named Carol. In this incarnation, I am connected to the body of a woman. My gender in this reincarnation is that of a woman. I'm of a certain age, of a certain profession, but myself as an eternal spirit has many more dimensions than that. One day I will leave this personality behind and I will see myself in my own entirety. And because God is just, dear friends, that is the case for each and every one of us. So let us look at whether we are being accepting and understanding of others in the same way that we wish on this multidimensional level. Which multidimensional level? We are even going to write here on the chat so we all can have this multidimensional references as a guiding point for our conversation tonight. So the first dimension that we would like to examine is our inner dimension. Inner dimension. Hello, dear friend. We believe this is Shane. Are we correct? Hello, dear friend, and hello, Kardec Radio team. It's beautiful to be part of such a beautiful teamwork effort for the good. So the first dimension that we would like to examine is the inner dimension. What do we mean by inner dimension? It is the dimension, dear friends, that is invisible to most. And that dimension consists of, number one, our thoughts, our feelings, and our inner dialogues. So let us illustrate. When we approach our co-workers, for example, are we coherent internally and externally? Because at work, most of us know that we should follow a certain etiquette. So we are polished, we are polite, we follow certain rules and expectations and policies. We know how to interact with one another. We know how to be civil. We know how to go by the book, literally. However, how are we doing internally? If we had a camera and filmed ourselves, externally, we may be presentable. We may be picture perfect. Literally, we may be exactly what others expect of us. So we may play that part perfectly of the perfect co-worker. But how are we doing in terms of our inner dimension? Meaning, when we meet a co-worker, do we truly experience joy in encountering the child of God? Meaning, when we say good morning, nice to see you, do we really mean it? Or do our bodies externalize good morning, nice to see you with a beautiful smile, whereas internally we are having a different type of dialogue. We may be saying, here comes that person again. Ooh, that voice. Ooh, the way they look at the camera. Oh, I bet they're going to talk about the XYZ topic again. Not again. So you see, dear friends, how we may have split personalities while we may be presentable externally if we turn the camera of our conscience internally in our inner dimension, we notice that we are not perhaps being coherent because we may not be truly wishing a good morning. We may not be harvesting feelings of collegial collaboration towards that colleague. Rather, at times, we may even have a prepared dialogue inside of us, saying to ourselves, we know what that person is going to say. When the meeting starts, they're going to say this and that and the other. And they're going to complain about the weather. And they're going to complain about the fact that they haven't gone on a vacation. And they're going to complain, and we put that person in a box and create a mental prison for that person. So if we look at ourselves on the outside, yes, we are doing to that coworker what we wish to receive, which is being collegial, being kind, being friendly. But because we are not this body alone, the question is, are we truly wishing, vibrating that same collegiality and kindness? Good question. In the eyes of God, dear friends, because God knows the recesses of our souls, it is not enough to look the part. We need to feel it, we need to think it, we need to vibrate it. And we may be wondering, Carol, come on, aren't you going a little too far? Dear friend, you may be asking us. And the question is, according to the spirit of science, no, beloved friends. Because in the book of Genesis, we learn that our thoughts are actually living energy and that they have a living dimension. They are like living forms that can actually attract other minds to it. Yes, friends, absolutely. This is in the chapter entitled Fluids in the book The Genesis by Allan Kardec. This is why Emmanuel, through Chico Xavier, also wrote a book entitled Thought is Life. Because truly we are molding the environment in which we live through our thoughts and vibrations. So when we say good morning, are we thinking of a good morning? Are we feeling it? Are we vibrating it? If we are, then we can truly say that we are doing to others what we would like to receive. So we are being invited tonight to examine our coherence, to examine whether or not we reflect on the outside what we feel, think, and vibrate on the inside. In other words, does our outer world, the one everyone sees, match our inner one? This is why the first dimension that we are being called to examine is our inner dimension. The second dimension that the mentors would like for us to examine together, beloved friends, is as follows. Is our family dimension, or close relationships dimension. We are typing this here for our own reference as well. This dimension, dear friends, refers to how we interact with the ones that God has placed in our immediate closest circle. When we meet, for instance, a relative, do we have an inner dialogue that is already created in our minds? Or do we already meet that relative with preconceptions? Or do we already judge that relative, labeling them and putting them in their particular box in our minds? In other words, we obviously, of course, know how to be polite, know perhaps even what to say, what the relatives would like to hear. We know even what they like in terms of a gift that we could purchase for them. We know what their expectations are in terms of holidays and celebrations that we spend together. But how are we doing in terms of our thoughts and feelings and vibrations regarding those relatives when we meet them, even if through the internet because of the pandemic? Do we count the minutes for the call to end? Do we already try to guess what they are going to say? Or do we think to ourselves, oh, this person is hopeless? We have known them our entire life and they haven't changed this habit yet. So we already encounter the person mentally battling with them. Once again, we are good. We may be very good at playing the part, at meeting others' expectations, at being social, at being the relative that others expect us to be. But how are we doing inside of ourselves? Are we being accepting of these relatives and loving of these relatives beyond words, beyond external gestures, beyond a certain gift card, beyond an internet call? And we may be wondering, Carol, what do you mean beyond an internet call? When we tell them that we love them, do we really mean it? Or do we say it because we are expected to say it? Or do we already meet them thinking, oh my goodness, we know exactly how this conversation is going to go. Let me already ask them what I need to ask to take care of this business and be a good relative, and that's it. If we act in this socially appropriate manners, good for us, very good, this is progress. But because we know that we are more than our current personality, because we know that thought is life, because we know that our feelings create vibrations around us, because we know that often we are placed amongst other spirits with whom we need to practice patience, kindness, compassion, reconciliation, because we have the treasure of being able to look at life from a spiritual, eternal perspective. We are being called to do more than follow the golden rule by being polished, by being social, by being civil. We are being called to find the good in ourselves and in others? Are we able to find the good in the close relationships that we have? Or are we still at that stage in our evolution where we can be civil and polished and picture perfect, but inside of ourselves, we are making a list of what that person may do that annoys us? If we are at that stage still, dear friends, we are being given an opportunity to recalibrate. And we say to ourselves, we forgive ourselves, we understand where we are, and we know that we shall progress. How so? By seeking the good in others as well, by applying the golden rule from inside out. If we see in our internal dialogue that we are making a list of annoyances mentally, we can ask ourselves, would we like if one of our relatives thought of annoyances every time that we interacted with them? Probably we would not. So we can shift mentality. How so, dear friends? Forgive us for a second so we get a little something to illustrate our thoughts here. We can do an exercise. We can choose to consciously enter the constructive currents of divine life by seeking the good in one another. If at the present moment, this is the line of eternity, time never ends. So if at this present moment we are having difficulty finding the good, let us look past the present time and travel forward to a different point in time when our internal conflicts will be resolved and we will be able to nourish an even more loving relationship with one another. Let us envision our relatives giving us their best. Let us envision them fully aligned with the proposal of their reincarnation. Let us invest in their good so that we vibrate the good and thus are able to receive the good. How do we do that again? One possible exercise is to look past the present moment and visualize ourselves in the near or not so near future already with the feelings that may be of a conflictual nature resolved with the power of the mind. We can enter the constructive currents of divine light because life is never ending, so it is our choice to choose a different point in the continuum of life to focus on, dear friends. And the last dimension that we would like to mention, the third dimension, one second, the third dimension is the collective dimension. Is how we vibrate, think, feel about the communities of which we are part. So we start our journey of doing to others what we would like to receive, making sure that our inner dialogues, our feelings, our choices, our internal attitudes are coherent with what our mouths are saying and the gestures we are producing. Then, once we practice inner coherence in the inner dimension invisible to the eyes, we then extend this practice of coherence to our closest relationships, finding the good in the ones that God has placed the closest to us. Again, how? We can fast forward in the line of time and already visualize us in perfect communion because we are destined to be in alignment, loving alignment with one another. And the third dimension is the collective dimension, is how we interact with the communities of which we are part. Sometimes we have the habit of even mentally criticizing other drivers in the highway. Saying that person drives too fast, that person drives too slow. I can't believe it that we are here stuck in traffic. If this person could only, even in traffic. If we choose to align ourselves with the good, then we say, well, perhaps the person is driving too slow because they are scared at the moment, they are new to this town, or they are driving too fast because they are facing an emergency or facing an emotional difficulty. So we change the scanner, the spiritual scanner through which we read a particular situation. So, final question to us. In order for us to do to others what we would like to receive and vice versa, we need to spiritually scan ourselves. How is our inner dimension doing if we put a spiritual scanner against us? How would we be doing? Are we closer to being coherent from the inside out? Let us examine ourselves from 0 to 10. How coherent are our thoughts, feelings, and attitudes that are invisible to the world, coherent with our gestures and choices that are visible to the world? What would the scanner say? 0 to 10. 0, not coherent. 10, absolutely coherent. And how good have we been at expressing this coherence with our closest relationships? What would our spiritual scanner say? 0 to 10. 0 means need to work on it. 10 means we are there. And how are we doing with being coherent with the communities around us? 0 to 10. What would our spiritual scanner say? What would the reading be? Good exercise for all of us, ourselves included, beloved friends. So let us speak one of the dimensions in the next 24 hours and work on achieving this coherence so that we can truly become more loving and more accepting towards one another by giving to others what we would like to receive. Definition of justice. And how do we do all that again? We are going to write it here as well for our own sake. We seek the good in ourselves and others. This leads us to be more coherent and thus better able to do to others what we would like to receive. Definition of justice. What a beautiful, empowering opportunity for all of us, right, dear friends? So let us continue exercising the muscles of our souls together in the school of life. We thank you so much for the gift of your company, the gift of your presence, and we hope and pray that we can all be inspired tonight and throughout the week by the envoys of the Christ to become all the more coherent in the choices, feelings, thoughts, and actions that we embrace. Yes, visualize the good in all, mold the good. You got it. Thank you, dear friends. We wish you many blessings, and we will see you again next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, God willing. In the meantime, please stay tuned right here on Kardec Radio, because here we are always nourishing our souls. Much love and many blessings, dear friends. Bye for now.